G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder. Today, we're not going to have a look at a specific vehicle or a specific battle. I thought we might have a look at the new battle ratings that were proposed by Gaijin. Now, for those of you who don't know, recently Gaijin has decided to do some balancing with some of the battle ratings and adjust some planes. Now, I'm going to have a look at the planes specifically, and I'm going to talk about a couple of solutions that I think Gaijin has missed as well. And for those of you who don't know Slickbee, Slickbee is another larger content creator, and he's going to cover the ground vehicles. So, Slick is more a tanker, I'm more a pilot, and I would say, Slick has a slightly more informed opinion on certain vehicles, like the T-32, which, I don't have the T-32, I've never used it. Now, for me, we're going to go over the aircraft, and for the most part, there are some really positive changes here. The XP55 is 4.0. That's a decent change. Things like the Sparvieros are going down. Now that's all right. That's not a bad thing. And the Heinkel 100 is finally going up to 2.0. No longer going to club as hard. So we have some decent changes. One of the things that struck me though were the jet changes. Now, for those of you who don't know, the R2Y2s are one of the strongest planes in the game. Now, the R2Y2s have always been very, very strong. And one of the things that is happening to the R2Y2s is they're getting an up tier. All of them are going from 7.0 to 7.3 or 7.3 to 7.7. Now, on top of that, they're also having their ground spawn given to, or they're having their air spawn removed. This is very typical of Gaijin to do what is called a double nerf. Now, they literally always do this. They will always mess with something more than it needs to be messed with. Sometimes, for example, the old MiG-15 BIS versus the F-86 F2 back in the day was often tampered with twice rather than just once. Instead of nerfing both turn and energy retention, what Gaijin should be doing is nerfing one of them, or adjusting one so that it is, better balanced, instead of doing both at the same time. Now, I'm going to go through all of these battle ratings, and I'm going to discuss them briefly. Certain things like the CR714, I don't really care about. It's probably garbage, and it probably deserves the battle rating that it has. The Heinkel 100 is good. E1, BF109 E1, which is a seal clubber, is going up to 2.3. That's good. SM91s, they should all be fine. The ME264, now in arcade, that actually gets a battle rating increase, but in realistic it doesn't. Now, I find this ridiculous, because I think that the 264 is one of the best bombers in the game, and instead of having a massive repair cost, it should have an appropriate battle rating. It has the tonnage of bombs to be a good tier 4 level bomber, like a 4.3, 4.7 bomber. It is at about the level of the PE8, but it sits at a whole battle rating lower with an astonishing repair cost. So instead of burdening players with a massive repair cost, why don't you put the battle rating up? Maybe that'll be better. This is something that I think Gaijin keeps overlooking, and honestly, it's it's kind of weird. It's kind of strange. So, a couple of other good changes. The Beaufighter Mark 10. That thing, funnily enough, used to be 5.0. It's now 3.3, which shows you how incompetent the plane really is. It's not a great plane at all. A 3.3 might actually be appropriate for it. XP55 at 4.0. I totally agree on this. I think it's very, very close in performance to the BF109 F4. So, I feel that that's justified. Beaufighter Mark 21 also used to be 5.0, now 3.7. Whirlwind, that's fine. Kawasaki 96, that works for me. At 3.7, these are some good changes. The first Dornier 335 is now 5.0 instead of 5.3. That's okay. I-225 is going down. The Yak-3U is going to 5.7 from 6.3. That's probably one of the bigger battle rating changes, and it's quite funny because, I honestly didn't really expect anything from the Yak-3U. I don't really care about it, and, it is a Yak that faces jets that's not the Yak-15, so, I don't really expect a whole lot of it. Now the N1K2s, both the J and the JA, are going down in battle rating. This is kind of interesting. They're no longer at the same level as the Spitfire Mark 22, despite being roughly similar in performance as far as I'm aware. Now, here we're getting into the jets. For me, these are the interesting battle ratings. The Horton 229 is finally getting a battle rating increase to 7.3. Now, I did make a video, and I do believe that this plane should be 7.7, because it is more on par with something like the Sea Meteor or even the Meteor Mark 8. It really outclasses everything at its battle rating up until about 8.0, where it'll start to struggle. But at 7.3, I feel like that's a good start. And, we'll see how that goes in the future. I'm kind of interested to see how that goes. I'm very glad that Gaijin actually decided to do something. And maybe now that it's got such a high battle rating, maybe they can reduce the repair cost as it becomes slightly less effective. Now, obviously, I've already discussed the R2Y2s, all going up in battle rating. A double nerf, which shouldn't be happening. They should either get a battle rating increase or get their airspawn removed. And I think the better change is to only have the airspawn removed. Sitting them at 7.0 is fine because they do turn really well, but they don't climb and they don't gain energy. Once you lose that energy, you're pretty much gone. And, one of the things that the R2Y2 is also good at is hunting bombers. And it can't really do that. Which is actually kind of interesting because the only thing that can effectively hunt B-29s now are the Arados. Damn. That's going to be interesting. So, off to the Seahawks. Now, both Seahawks, including the premium one in the German tree, are going to 8.0. I believe this is totally fair, and I believe that the Seahawk actually, for me, from experience, outclasses the G91 Pre. So, maybe it should be a little higher. Maybe it should be... we'll see. We'll see how that goes. The CL-13 Mark V. Now, this is the CL-13A, the first one, is now at the same battle rating as the CL-13B. Now, personally, I don't like it being at the same battle rating as the CL-13B because it is now... you really have no reason to take out the Mark V unless it's to grind for the Mark VI. I don't really see a point in it. Now, especially with the CL-13 Mark VI in the game, although I do understand that the CL-13 Mark V is at a higher level than planes like the F-86 F-25, the F-35, and planes such as the F-2 Sabre. It categorically outclasses them. Things like the F-30, it also categorically outclasses. It just has a better engine. And in jets, if you have more thrust, you generally have a better time. If you have more, not just top speed, but better energy retention, better acceleration, and that's something that the Mark V CL-13 has over things like the F2 and the A5. Whereas, in cases like, and the Hunter as well. So, it's more that it is superior to some 9.0s that it is at 9.3 rather than it is deserving of 9.3. It's just to sort of give it some separation between those jets that are, slightly inferior. And whilst this is a good battle rating for the CL-13 to be at, I don't think that the higher battle ratings, so for example the 10.0s, should be 10.0 to reflect this, because I think it's a little bit too close to vehicles like the T2 and the F100. Even though its performance does come a little bit close, it doesn't have any countermeasures such as AIM-9s to really combat it. So this is a bit of a double-edged sword. I don't really feel particularly strong about this battle rating increase, but I don't particularly dislike it in any way, shape, or form. Now, a couple of really positive ones here. F-80C is going down from 8.0 to 7.7, which means that it will no longer face 9.0s. It'll now be at the battle rating that it should have been since 2015 when it got moved up. This is absolutely perfect. This plane is now back in style. The F-80C is now at a really, really good position. I am stoked to see this. This has been a long time coming, and I'm so glad that this is the case. Yak 30 is going to 8.3. Now, I like the Yak 30, although I'm not sure it's deserving of 8.3. I think it might be. I feel like it is on par somewhat with the G91 Pre, but it is and it isn't. It is a little bit tricky to use. I feel like it is, somewhere in between the F80C and the G91 Pre. So I don't know. Maybe I have to do more digging. Maybe I have to do a little bit more thinking about that. But 8.3, we'll see how it goes. It should be okay. I think the Yak 23 is more deserving of that than the Yak 30 though. G91 Pre. Now this one I'm a little bit not concerned, but I don't really think it's deserving. 8.7 for the G91 Pre is a little bit high. It's now at the same battle rating as the G91R. Oh no, the G91R is at 9.0. Never mind. I don't know. I don't think it's deserving. I think 8.3 is good for it. I think it is a good all-rounder jet, and that's why it performs well. Planes like the G91 Pre are sort of in line with the Meteor Mark 8. That's how I see the G91. It's slightly faster, ever so slightly better than the G91. Than the Meteor Mark 8, and it is roughly on par with the Yak 30 and the LA-15, Yak 23. It's sort of in that ballpark. It's very slow. It doesn't exceed 1,000 kilometers per hour, but it has a lot better energy characteristics than something like an F-84G, which means that you have to put it above the F-84G, and I think 8.3 was a good spot. When you get to 8.7, you're starting to put it on par with things like the MiG-15s now that are getting there, and it doesn't really. It's not at the same level as things like the MiG-15, and I don't think it's deserving of that battle rating. Speaking of the MiG-15s, they're all getting a down tier to 8.7 now. For the most part, this is justified. Although I will say this: so the MiG-15 BIS is a very strong jet. It's extremely good. It does take a lot of work to get used to, but once you get used to the MiG-15 BIS, it is actually really, really good. I feel like the MiG-15 BIS is on par with something like the F2 Sabre. I feel like it is exactly on par, and I feel like the MiG-17 is a side grade. Although the MiG-17 is slightly better. You see, the MiG-15 holds onto energy, and when it holds onto energy, it tends to compress at speeds above 600 kilometers per hour. So it is sort of a plane for the lower speed dogfights. And at 9.0, it really doesn't see lower speed dogfights. Maybe 8.7 is going to be better for it. Honestly, it's one of the changes, much like the CL-13 Mark V, that I'm not really against, but at the same time, I don't really see a reason as well. The non-BIS, though, that is a big change. That is much needed. 8.7 has been a spot that, has now opened up with these new changes. 8.7 is now a massive battle rating, and I just see a lot of 8.7 and 7.7 matches now. It's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. 8.0 is, in my opinion, the best of jets, and, let's see how this goes. If it goes well, then, I'll make a video and say how good it's going. If it's going poorly, we'll come back to it later as well. Now, the Venom is also going down to 8.7. This is a change that I've been wanting for a long time. The Venom is simply not competitive against jets like the MiG-19, against the higher tier stuff. It suffers a little bit as well against things like the CL-13. It's not on the same performance level, in my opinion. A lot of people do like the Venom. Personally, I don't like it because of the combination of guns. You need a lot of gun time. You also need to close the distance, and that's something between you and the plane, so that you can actually get lots of shots falling within range, because the cannons don't really do much damage at long range. I find that the Venom is really, really good for, those tight engagements, and at 8.7, I'm hoping it'll see more engagements like that. This is a good change overall. I'm interested to see how this goes, and let's see. It should be good. Now, another change that has interested me is the Javelin going down to 8.7. Now, when I made my video on the Javelin, I said that its performance was around an 8.3. Maybe it is an 8.7, but honestly, a MiG-17 can outturn the Javelin at pretty much every speed. From what I've played, I feel like the Javelin is just not a competitive plane at all. 8.7 is a good start. We'll see how it goes. I really don't know what to think about this battle rating change, honestly. But we'll see. We'll just have to wait and see. For now, I approve of this change. If it turns out to be dumb or not enough, then it'll be that way. Okay, so the Mystères. We're getting into the final changes here that Gaijin are implementing. So we're looking at an 8.7 for them instead of a 9.0 battle rating, which means finally they'll get some separation between them and the afterburning jets. The Mystères are pretty poorly performing. They've always performed subpar to even things like the MiG-15. They're honestly not 8.7 jets. I would say they're 8.3 or 8.0 jets, because they just do not hold energy the way that other jets do at that battle rating. They are more akin to something like a G91, something more akin to an LA-15, rather than, a Sabre, a MiG-15, or, even the Venom. I would pick the Venom over the Mystères any day, just because I think the performance is better, and I hate the Venom. I personally dislike the Venom. So, that's not a bad change. I think it's a good start, but we'll see how that goes. The final change for realistic battles is the G91YS going up to 9.7. Now, for me, I like the G91YS's capabilities. For me, it's not really my style, but I can understand why it would be going up. I don't really like the plane as much. It is a great plane, but the overall playstyle is, I think I would still prefer the F100. Let's just put it that way. I just like the YS has fantastic acceleration, and I think it's good that it's getting some battle rating separation from things like the AC-30, which is kind of needed. I think that's fine, and it's good to have it at such a high level, because it does play at a high level. So, in 17 minutes, we've covered all of the changes for aircraft. Now, I would like to suggest some other changes. For those of you who don't know, I made a little suggestion on the forums, and my suggestions basically go as follows. The M46 should go down to 6.7, because if you watched Slick's video, the Jagdtiger is going down to 6.7. Now, 6.7 is quite a massive reduction for something like the Jagdtiger, and there isn't anything for the Americans as a medium tank to, one, complement the 6.7 lineup the way the Jagdtiger complements the German 6.7 lineup, and at the same time there is no medium tank hard counter. The best medium tank you have is the Premium Pershing, which, only barely pens it with the APCR, and it doesn't stand nearly as good a chance. Honestly, I think there's a reason why tank destroyers have such a low spawn cost, and it's because they are a double-edged sword. I think the Jagdtiger sitting at 6.7 would mean that it would at least have to have a hard counter to it in every nation. And for the most part, with the exception of the USSR, there pretty much is. Now, with France, they don't exactly have high-penetrating shells, but they do have the mobility to scoot around the Jagdtiger if they need to at 7.7. And at 6.7, you have the Char 25T, the AMX M4. Actually, I believe the AMX M4 has the raw penetration. No, it actually doesn't. But that's fine, because you have other options there. I see the M46 as a direct competition to something like the T-44-100, which probably should also go down to 6.7. But honestly, there are some changes that are I'm surprised that they missed. I'm surprised that they didn't do anything to the F100. That should go up to 10.0. The AIM-9Es on the F100 have arguably made it a better jet than the MiG-19 PT, and have put it at a high level that it simply outclasses the Hunter F6 as well. It doesn't matter if you have SRAMs or not. If the Hunter can't get its guns on target, and if it can't make the F100 overshoot at all, no matter what it does, I think the battle rating should be more reflective of that. So I think the F100 should be at 10.0. I think the T2, it's a massive one. Why was that missed? I think the T2 outclasses everything in the game except for things like the MiG-19S, and the F100 is capable of fighting it. Obviously not 100% equal on competition. So I think the T2 should be increased in battle rating. I don't think things like the CL-13 should be seeing it. I don't think things like In this case, the Vautours. I don't think the Vautours should have to fight the T2. I don't think certain other jets should have to fight it. The Super Mystère should have to barely. I certainly don't think the G91R should be fighting this, especially the R4, which is a premium. Imagine buying yourself a premium and having to deal with something like the T2 straight off the bat. You have no idea how to fight it. It's not an easy jet to fight, and it's at a battle rating that's a little bit too low. So I would advocate for the T2 to go to 10.7. Now, there are several other changes that I advocated for. I'll see if I can link my forum post. I'd encourage you to go and discuss it if it's still open, or at least upvoted or something like that. Now, one of the more interesting changes that I proposed is one that I honestly thought would have happened by now. I'm honestly dead-ass surprised that Gaijin hasn't decompressed battle ratings at the top end. I thought this was supposed to be a decompression battle rating change, and I think Gaijin have really missed that opportunity, especially with top-tier tanks. What do I mean by top-tier tanks exactly? I mean tanks, surface-to-air missile systems, and helicopters. So, let me explain. At battle rating 8.0, you unlock your first radar-guided SPAA. Now, this might be the M163 VADS, this might be the Shilka, or this could be something like the Gepard, it could also be something like the AMX-30 DCA, or, it could be the Chieftain Marksman. At battle rating 8.0, you are likely to get down-tiered to 7.0, in some cases. Obviously, currently that's not always the case, but sometimes you will get a down-tier to 7.0. At 7.0, the best plane that you can use for ground attack tops out at around 900 kilometers per hour. Consider this. You're traveling at 900 kilometers per hour. Someone on your search radar picks you up from 10 kilometers away as you spawn, ranges you in at 3, and blasts you before you can evade. You're not fast enough to, evade. You're not fast enough to get away. And there is simply nothing that you can do effectively at 700, 800, 900 kilometers per hour. Even in a Horton 229, good luck getting away from a radar SPAA that's shooting you at 2 kilometers. Good luck. You're not going to be able to do it, even with a low profile. Now, you get to a point where you start getting sick of taking out planes. You start getting sick of taking out multiple lineups, multiple spawns, because, let's face it, CAS encourages lineups. You have a state of the game where if you can't continuously farm spawn points to spawn planes to get kills, you're just going to stop bringing planes, and you're also going to stop bringing SPAA because there are going to be no planes to farm. You're going to take out 1 or 2 tanks, and then no one is going to end up playing for long matches. You don't get those really enjoyable and profitable, long drawn-out matches. Often I come away from a match that, has gone for 20, 30 minutes. I come out with like 150 Silver Lions, even without premium planes or tanks. And that's simply because either you're able to do so much work, or because of the battle activity and the change in, the algorithm for awarding research and Silver Lions, the longer you stay in a battle, the better. So having multiple vehicles in your lineup, including planes and SPAA, being part of that triangle is really, really important. And I think having tanks or SPAA with a search radar, that is the Gepard, the DCA-30, the Marksman, and I believe there is another one, the Type 87, there we go, the Japanese one. I believe that throws everything out of balance. I think that the Type 87 and the other SPAAs with search radar, like the M247 as well, are at a good position when it comes to SPAA versus helicopters. At 8.0, you have, helicopters such as the AH-1G. Now, the AH-1G is a good match for something like the Type 87. They can both kill each other from a range of about 3 kilometers, and I feel like that gameplay is fair, and the dynamics around them are fairly fair. The only issue for radar SPAA with a search is that the dynamic with planes is way out of whack. I think that it is too strong in the favor of the SPAA. I think it doesn't give them a chance, and I would propose that you increase all of the helicopters equally and all of the SPAA with a search radar equally by up to 1 whole battle rating. And what this does is it gives some separation between the radar SPAA with a search, the radar SPAA with a target. So, for example, that actually gives you a reason to take out your M163. You know, you don't have no reason to take out your little VADs because that thing is actually quite powerful. And, you know, I think 8.0 is really suitable for it because you actually have to use your Mark 1 eyeball to have a look for stuff, and the Shilka as well. I feel like these vehicles are like they belong at 8.0, whereas something like the Gepard belongs at 9.0, where it faces things like the Sabres and things like the FJ4, which might not be as fast as the Sabres, but it certainly carries more payload to warrant that value as a 9.0 ground attacker. Things like the Tunguska and the radar SAMs are a little bit too low, I feel. And I feel like them versus planes, for example, put it this way, it's at the same battle rating as the F100. The F100 doesn't stand a chance. You literally get raped off the spawn, and I'm not kidding you. You last 5 seconds. I've watched plenty of content and experienced it myself, getting just absolutely annihilated off the spawn in a plane because you spawn up at 1,000 meters, and you know the radar instantly tracks you. You're dead in a second. It is just such stale gameplay that I think this needs to be changed, and things like the F100 need to be given a chance in this respect. Put the Tunguska up a single battle rating, and I would say you might as well, while you're at it, decompress the battle ratings of top tier. I would say put the 2A5 at 11.0 as well. I would say put the M1A1 and the M1IP at 9.7, and I would say put the T80U and the T80B at 9.7 as well, because let's face it, the most of these tanks are just a flat upgrade. Obviously, there are tanks that I've missed, like the Leclerc and the AMX 40, but you know, I think the video is going a little bit too long, and I'd like to wrap it up here. Basically, I think the battle rating should have been decompressed, and Gaijin has missed themselves an opportunity. Honestly, most of these battle rating changes, especially around the tier 5 area, are fairly positive when it comes to planes, but I certainly think there is room for improvement. I don't think that Gaijin has done enough here, and I certainly think that when it comes to helicopters, Gaijin really needs to step up and do something about them. Anyway, ladies and gents, let me know in the comments below what you think. Give me suggestions. Let's have a conversation. You know, if you come from Slickbee's video, say hi. If you haven't watched Slickbee's video, I'll link it in the description. I'll thank you very much for watching. If you've reached the end of the video, do comment. War Thunder battle ratings are fine, and the Tunguska needs to be 3.7. Anyway, ladies and gents, take care, and I'll catch you next time.